Toxic people are individuals whose behavior consistently harms others, often causing emotional or mental distress. Their actions stem from inner turmoil, reflecting unresolved pain and negative experiences. Understanding this concept is essential because it allows us to approach these interactions with a clearer perspective, reducing the impact of their negativity on our well-being. The Zen master, a central figure in the story, uses this understanding to guide a student who is struggling with toxic individuals. As they sit by a tranquil pond, the Zen master points to a lotus flower growing in murky waters, symbolizing resilience and inner peace. Just as the lotus remains untainted by the surrounding muck, we too can cultivate peace within ourselves despite the negativity from toxic people. This Zen approach is not just about removing oneself from harmful relationships, but transforming the situation into an opportunity for growth and wisdom. By observing this metaphor, we learn that maintaining inner peace involves embracing understanding, compassion, and boundaries. This journey begins by recognizing that toxic behavior often originates from the suffering of others. With this awareness, we can begin to handle toxic people with empathy, rather than allowing their actions to disturb our peace. The lessons from the Zen master offer a timeless path to emotional freedom. Now, let's explore how Zen teachings guide us through the complexities of dealing with toxic relationships. In Zen and Buddhist philosophy, toxic people are seen as individuals whose negative behavior arises from deep inner suffering. This suffering often manifests in their actions, causing harm to others. Understanding that toxic behavior is a reflection of a person's internal pain is crucial in navigating such relationships. Zen teaches that when others act in harmful ways, it is not a personal attack, but a reflection of their own unresolved struggles. This perspective allows us to separate their actions from our own sense of self-worth. When dealing with toxic people, we are reminded that their words and actions do not define who we are. Their behavior stems from their own emotional turmoil, not from our actions or worth. By recognizing this, we are able to maintain our peace and sense of self, understanding that their negativity is not a reflection of our value. This separation of behavior from self-worth is a core principle in Zen teachings, helping us cultivate compassion without internalizing the harm inflicted upon us. Furthermore, Zen emphasizes that understanding this deeper layer of human behavior can be incredibly transformative. When we approach toxic individuals with empathy rather than anger, we free ourselves from being ensnared by their negativity. Compassion is not about excusing harmful actions, but rather about recognizing their pain while maintaining our own emotional clarity. This understanding helps us shift our focus from defensiveness and frustration to a more peaceful, centered response. In this light, Zen encourages us to confront toxic people not with retaliation, but with understanding, knowing that their actions come from a place of suffering. Moreover, Zen teaches that by focusing on understanding rather than taking offense, we protect our own mental and emotional well-being. By seeing their actions through the lens of compassion and self-awareness, we create an emotional shield that prevents us from absorbing their toxicity. As we continue on this path, we realize that their behavior is not a reflection of us, but of their unresolved struggles. This deeper understanding is crucial for emotional growth and for fostering peaceful, non-reactive responses to the negativity in our lives. Understanding these teachings allows us to handle toxic relationships with wisdom and compassion while ensuring our own peace remains intact. It is through this compassionate approach that we can continue to grow spiritually, avoiding the traps of resentment and anger. This lesson leads us naturally to explore the role that compassion plays in breaking these cycles. Compassion is often viewed as a form of self-liberation, offering the ability to transform toxic situations and relationships. It is important to understand that true compassion does not focus on changing others, but rather on freeing oneself from the negative emotions that can arise when dealing with toxic individuals. The act of showing compassion helps to shift the focus from feelings of anger, resentment, and frustration to a state of peace and emotional clarity. By choosing to respond with compassion, we are not only helping others, but also protecting our own mental well-being. This kind of compassion can soften even the hardest hearts. For instance, when we encounter someone who lashes out in anger, showing them empathy may help break the cycle of conflict. Rather than mirroring their negativity, compassion allows us to hold space for their suffering without absorbing it into our own emotional state. The Zen teachings emphasize that when we respond with kindness, we are freeing ourselves from the emotional weight of the situation. It is about choosing to release our own anger and resentment, which ultimately helps us heal and move forward. However, the rejection of compassion is a possibility that cannot be overlooked. Sometimes, when we show kindness to toxic individuals, they may not reciprocate or may even respond with more hostility. Despite this, Zen teaches us that rejection should not deter us from continuing to act with compassion. Compassion is not about altering the behavior of others, but about maintaining our own emotional balance and peace. It is a practice of self-care and self-respect, enabling us to retain our dignity without being consumed by negative feelings. By embracing compassion, we break free from the hold toxic relationships can have on our lives. We are reminded that we have control over our emotional responses, and that compassion is an essential tool for self-liberation. When we are able to show compassion even when it is difficult, it serves as a reminder that we are the ones who benefit most from this act of kindness. Over time, we come to see that the peace we cultivate within ourselves radiates outward, influencing the dynamics of our relationships. This process becomes a path not only to personal growth, but also to healing and liberation. Moving forward, this practice of compassion naturally leads to an exploration of the boundaries we must set in order to protect ourselves while maintaining this peace. Compassion empowers us to establish these limits, enabling us to protect our emotional space while still responding to others with kindness and understanding. Building on the earlier discussions of compassion, we now delve into the importance of setting boundaries, an essential practice in preserving our emotional well-being while maintaining healthy relationships. Boundaries are not meant to be walls that isolate us from others, but rather flexible structures that protect our peace and enable positive interactions. Setting clear and firm boundaries communicates to others that we value and respect ourselves, which, in turn, fosters mutual respect and understanding. Healthy boundaries are designed to offer protection without creating unnecessary conflict. They provide a framework for individuals to express their needs and limitations clearly, without resorting to defensiveness or hostility. For example, if someone repeatedly crosses a personal limit, whether through unwarranted criticism or constant demands, a boundary can be set by calmly expressing that their behavior is unacceptable. A simple, direct statement such as, "I am not comfortable with this behavior," can effectively communicate that the interaction must change for it to continue in a healthy direction. Moreover, setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It shows that we are committed to protecting our mental and emotional space, ensuring that we don't allow others to deplete our energy or compromise our peace. Boundaries remind us that we have the right to say no when necessary, without guilt or shame. This act of self-care not only shields us from toxic dynamics, but also encourages others to treat us with the dignity we deserve. For instance, when a friend regularly demands time or attention without considering our needs, setting a boundary might involve expressing that while we value their friendship, we need time for personal rest or other commitments. Such a boundary, when communicated with clarity and compassion, helps preserve the relationship while ensuring that our own well-being is not sacrificed. However, boundaries can be challenging, especially when those we set them with react negatively. It is important to remember that a boundary is not an attempt to control others, but to protect ourselves. The wisdom in setting boundaries lies in maintaining our emotional stability while allowing for positive interactions to continue. Like bamboo that bends with the wind, boundaries can be flexible, accommodating the flow of relationships without compromising our core values. By setting boundaries, we demonstrate self-respect and cultivate a healthier environment for ourselves and others. With clear boundaries in place, we can navigate difficult situations with greater ease, knowing that we have the tools to protect our peace. Moving forward, this practice of setting healthy boundaries naturally brings us to a deeper understanding of the importance of self-reflection and growth. Self-reflection plays a crucial role in breaking free from the patterns of toxic relationships. Often, the outer world, including the people we interact with, mirrors our inner world. This means that if we find ourselves repeatedly drawn to toxic individuals, it may indicate unresolved emotional wounds within ourselves. These individuals may embody the aspects of ourselves we haven't yet healed, projecting them outward. Therefore, the key to breaking these patterns is not merely focusing on changing the toxic individuals, but examining what inside us is attracting them. Understanding that the people we encounter are reflections of our inner turmoil can be enlightening. For instance, if we are frequently in relationships where we feel disrespected or misunderstood, it might be a signal to look inward. Are we inadvertently tolerating poor treatment because we have not learned to value ourselves? Are there past wounds, such as unresolved guilt or feelings of inadequacy, that we are projecting into our current relationships? Self-reflection helps us uncover these truths, allowing us to address them, heal, and ultimately transform our relational patterns. Self-reflection also empowers us to set healthier boundaries. When we begin to recognize our own emotional triggers and patterns, we can establish clearer lines between ourselves and the toxic behaviors of others. For example, by reflecting on past interactions, we can notice whether we tend to forgive toxic behavior too easily or make excuses for others. Once this pattern is identified, we can choose to respond differently, asserting ourselves with confidence and clarity. Setting boundaries becomes less about fighting against others and more about protecting our peace and self-worth. In addition, self-reflection enables personal growth. It challenges us to ask difficult questions, such as, why do I feel drawn to this type of relationship? Or what in my past might be influencing how I interact with this person? By engaging in this type of inquiry, we begin to understand the deeper motivations behind our behaviors. It allows us to heal old wounds and to develop the emotional intelligence needed to navigate future relationships with greater wisdom and discernment. In essence, self-reflection serves as a tool for personal transformation. It provides the clarity we need to recognize toxic patterns, heal from past wounds, and build healthier, more fulfilling relationships. When we are no longer controlled by unresolved emotions, we can approach others with a sense of peace and resilience, free from the emotional turbulence that toxic relationships often bring. This process not only strengthens our self-awareness, but also leads us toward lasting emotional freedom. Letting go is a fundamental concept in both Zen and Buddhist teachings, but it is often misunderstood. It is not about abandoning compassion or severing ties with others. Rather, it is about freeing ourselves from toxic influences that hinder our personal growth. The practice of detachment allows us to maintain compassion while preserving our emotional and mental well-being. It is an act of self-care that fosters peace and helps break the cycle of unhealthy relationships. When we let go, we are not rejecting others, but reclaiming our own power, and through this process, we create space for healthier relationships. Detachment, in this context, is not about becoming indifferent or emotionally distant. It is about setting clear boundaries and recognizing when a relationship has become detrimental to our inner peace. Zen teachings emphasize the importance of balance, being fully present without allowing external circumstances to dominate our emotional state. By letting go of attachments to toxic individuals, we free ourselves from the emotional turmoil that often accompanies these relationships. This process is not about changing others, but about protecting ourselves from being consumed by their negativity. Letting go also involves recognizing the impermanence of all things. Relationships, like everything else, evolve and change, and sometimes, the healthiest course of action is to release them. This is not a failure, but an act of wisdom. When we hold on to unhealthy relationships out of fear or guilt, we are only prolonging our suffering. Detachment provides us with the clarity to see that we deserve relationships that nurture and uplift us, rather than ones that drain our energy. The practice of letting go brings peace. It allows us to stop carrying the weight of unresolved issues and emotional baggage. By embracing detachment, we can approach our interactions with others from a place of calm and resilience. This mindset shifts our focus from control to acceptance and from attachment to freedom. The space we create by letting go is filled with new possibilities, new relationships, new experiences, and a renewed sense of self. By freeing ourselves from toxic relationships, we open the door to a life that is more aligned with our true needs and values.